Hello, everyone. I'm Bernardo Prat, physician and founder of Além da Medicina, and this is a special edition of our podcast, The Future of Medicine. Our guest today is someone who truly needs no introduction in the world of medicine. I have here Daniel Kraft, graduated from Stanford and Harvard, and is the founder of NextMed and Digital.Health. Thank you for being here today, and thank you for the amazing keynote that you just gave us.
Obrigado. Great to be back here in
Oh,
Brazil.
you're learning Portuguese.
Ah,
Oh, there you go. And I want to start with the question that everyone is asking. Are doctors gonna be replaced by AI? I already know the answer. I was in the keynote, but I want you to share with us.
well, AI is going to not replace doctors. There's that quote I shared that's been used by many folks in different ways that AI is not going to replace the doctor, but the doctor using AI will replace the doctors who don't,
Oh, there
or
you
the
go.
pharmacist, or the hospital system. But it will be changing how we practice and who practices and where we practice. And it means we need to think differently about how we educate medical students, how we do continuing medical education, how do we think about the workflows, and how do we use AI, or I call it IA, intelligence augmentation, to upskill all of us, and also to get rid of some of the busy work, right? It can start to help you with your triage or your communication with your patients, but also can help us do smarter diagnostics or better therapeutics. It might even be medical malpractice not to use an AI in understanding what disease is happening in a difficult patient or picking the right therapy. So it's still very early days, but clearly generative AI in general is going to be changing many elements of our lives, including what it is to be a doctor or a nurse or a pharmacist or a patient.
Oh, there you go. And about the different kind of medical specialties, do you think is there any specialty that it's gonna face the change more recent or stronger than others?
Sure. I mean, the classic challenges for specialties are the ones that are based on sort of pattern recognition, the
Yeah.
dermatologist, the radiologist, the pathologist. So we already have some pretty powerful examples of FDA cleared apps for helping in radiology to read the mammogram or screen the chest x-ray. There's now this emergence of digital pathology, right? Instead of looking through the microscope, the AI scans through thousands of slices and can sometimes detect, for example, in a cancer, what if it's a breast cancer, if it's HER2 positive or HER2 negative or PR positive, just based on the AI analysis of an H&E stain, not even anything without any tags. So those specialties are going to shift with AI. You'll still need radiologists, dermatologists, and pathologists, but maybe some of the sort of grunt work that they do, reading lots of screening chest X-rays, or looking at every Pap smear. Pap smears are already read by AI. Will sort of shift the game, and also given that there's a shortage, particularly in many parts of the world, of radiologists, dermatologists, pathologists, and others, can really democratize our ability to diagnose disease and treat it.
Oh, if you were a radiologist today, for example, how could you prepare yourself for all of these changes?
Well, one change that might be happening is there may not be just being a radiologist in the future. You want to be a diagностologist. Maybe you
Mm,
start to learn both pathology and radiology. You become expert in making the diagnosis. That's often what those fields do collaboratively. Um, the If you're going to be a radiologist coming out of medical school today, it might be helpful also to become good with interventional radiology because it's going to take a little while for the
yeah.
robots to be doing all the interventional. They're starting to do some of it. Um, but it will probably give you better quality of life as a radiologist. It will let you do new things and collaborate with teams in new forms without having to spend all your time in a dark room just looking at screening X-rays. So we're going to need all players, but I think some of them might start to blend and meld in new ways, which gives opportunities to practice in new formats.
Oh, and we are seeing a lot of new papers bringing about AI and diagnosis. Can you give us a few examples where AI can already help us to diagnose this new disease and everything?
Sure, probably one example we're all familiar with, even when I was a medical student, if you did a 12 lead EKG, it might give you an early preliminary
Yeah,
reading, say normal sinus rhythm or heart block, or, go evaluate this further. Now I have in my pocket one of these,
it's gonna.
portable 6 lead EKGs, right?
Oh, that's
Which
nice.
it's called a LiveCore Cardia, and this has been on the market for a while. But, this will read a 6 lead EKG. There's a 12 lead version as well. It will analyze AFib, and now it's starting to analyze ST elevations for heart attacks. Um, or you can now even look at a 12 lead EKG, even an old one, take a
Any
picture
spec-
with ChatGPT 4.0, upload it, and it can start to predict ejection fraction. or early heart disease before it ever shows up. So these predictive models, sort of the needle hiding in the haystack, that invisible data layer is being extracted by LLMs and big data. So one example is what an EKG can tell you well beyond just the rhythm, including ejection fraction. Other examples, we all try and look at the back of the retina. We all struggle as a medical student to do the retinal exam.
Yeah, that's hard.
Now the mobile device with a camera and can take a picture of the back of the retina, and machine learning and AI can predict, does that patient have high blood pressure or risk for stroke? Or the picture itself can tell you whether it's male or female, or the BMI. So really incredible insights can be driven from that. Things that are less obvious are our digital fingerprints, just how you interact with your smartphone, how you're typing can tell you whether you're tired, you're depressed, you're drunk, you have schizophrenia. The voice picked up by your microphone can analyze and detect early neurologic disease, from Parkinson's to Alzheimer's to ALS. It can predict high blood sugar based on your voice. So very interesting new ways that we're extracting insights from data that will be a new form of screening and diagnostics.
Yeah, it's like the tip of the iceberg, right? As doctors, we can only see a fraction of the data, and AI can analyze a lot more of them.
And it's increasingly, you've probably heard the term multimodal. It's not just the X-ray or the labs or the genome. It's how you put them together. This idea often of the digital twin, layering genome, proteome, metabolome, sociome, microbiome, right? All those things together are more interesting than one by themselves. There's that old analogy of the five blind doctors touching an elephant. One feels the tail, one feels the nose. That's sort of often where we are in diagnostics and medicine, with sort of multimodal AI, where your mobile device can use the camera and the microphone and the voice and the video, really becomes interesting. And we can really get a new picture of health and disease and have a better idea of how to actually be proactive and personalized and preventative, rather than the sick care model that we tend to practice around the world.
You brought a lot of keynote about wearables and data. How we can connect the dots between the data generated by these wearables and predictive medicine?
Yeah, I call it predictalytics, right? One little vital sign or piece of clinical information is interesting, but it doesn't really give you a big picture. And most of what happens in our clinical practice, as you know, patient comes in, you get their vital signs, and maybe you collect that at their annual exam, maybe when they come into urgent care or emergency room. But we're now in an era where we can collect vital signs every minute. And it's not interesting what your vital sign is once, it's what the trend lines are. So part of this future of medicine will be some form of wearable, or even just your video camera and your camera on your smartphone can pick up vital signs. Where is that for you? How's that changing for Bernardo or Daniel or Luisa? Like, my resting heart rate is 55, but let's say over 2 months it goes up to 65. Is something going on in my cardiopulmonary system? Maybe there's changes in my voice that might indicate I have early heart failure or an early COVID infection. Those sorts of things continuously are much more interesting than one data point. The challenge for us as clinicians and health systems is, how do we connect those dots? They don't need to be the perfect wearable with FDA grade heart rate or blood pressure, but if they can start to show those changes and you can track them and make meaning of them, and give that sort of knowledge when it's needed just in time to the clinical care team, that's where you can move the needle.
Yeah. Every time that we talk about data, we talk about ethics, we talk about privacy. How do you see the regulation about this, and how doctors should be prepared to, create some framework to know where they can go, right?
Yeah, privacy is important, but also can be over-regulated and over-constrained. Kind of data is the new oil for medicine, but oil by itself is so what? You need to put that oil into being processed and in an engine so the power can take you somewhere, right? The oil is just the beginning. And the challenge is we restrict the flow of the oil. We don't build an effective engine, and we don't get to where we're going, or we get there much more slowly. And so while, new forms of data can be streaming from our faces and our wearables and our digital habits and our buying patterns, Amazon.com knows a lot more about your health from your buying patterns than your doctor does. So I'm hopeful that we can reimagine privacy. So in the United States, we have something called HIPAA, Health Information Privacy and Port, which is a well-meaning regulation, but it was written in the 1990s or 80s before there was
we have the same
before internet. And it means sometimes that it's very, very hard to share data, and patients are dying with their privacy intact, when if they would have been able to share their button or press the button and brought that information to the emergency room, their life could have been saved. So I think there's a trade-off. And I think most patients, I'm an oncologist, we know that in pediatric oncology, the way the world moved, it was every kid was part of a clinical trial. They're all sharing some form of the data that sped up cures for ALL and other cancers. That's now translated to human medicine. And I think many patients want to be able to donate their data to help other patients like them. So this idea of crowdsourcing knowledge is where we can go if people can opt in and make it easy to opt in, but still keeping that data anonymized. And what happens with your health insurance company? How's your genetic information? Can they be biased against you? Can your employer know something about your medical risks and not hire you? There's all those ethical constraints, but at the same time, we need to address the upsides and manage some of the risks. I don't have all the answers, but
Yeah.
it's an exciting time and a challenge for the ethicists and the policymakers.
Yeah, I think it's like how you can create a win-win relationship, right? The patient's winning, the doctor's winning, the technology is winning with a bigger amount of data, and everyone gets the benefit of it.
The analogy I gave in my keynote was Google Maps and Waze.
Yeah.
You're too young to remember driving with paper
No,
maps.
I'm not so young as this.
Well, we all used to drive in paper. And actually, it was good for our brains. We got a three-dimensional space. We knew our way
Yeah.
around town. We know that the cab drivers in London, they have a bigger thalamus or something because they memorized the streets. Now we're all dependent on GPS, and we may not know where we are in our own neighborhood. But
That's the point.
when we drive now with Google Maps or Waze, we're sharing some private data, our location, and if we're speeding or not, right? And that builds the map of traffic in real time. What if for our health journeys, every patient was sharing the right amount of their health data so that the next person driving down the same similar road in a similar car and similar traffic in Sao Paulo, you need different data than in New York or San Francisco, would help personalize our journeys, both for health and wellness and prevention, for earlier diagnostics, and smarter, more optimized therapy. Everyone wins in that situation. We still need to, of course, keep the data protected in ways so you can't harm somebody. But big picture, there's a huge opportunity to build a sort of global Waze or Google Maps that benefits everybody by everybody becoming part of the solution.
Yeah, but I would like to bring another perspective here. You mentioned about driving with GPS. I've been living here in São Paulo for 6 years, and I still can't drive without my Waze or Google Maps. Isn't that something that should worry us about this new technology? Are we going to be dependent on ChatGPT or something of this?
Yeah, I made the point that there's this famous quote from Sam Altman, who co-founded OpenAI, that GPT is like an e-bike for the brain, right? It makes it a little easier to write a new title or edit your paper or
Yeah.
write a poem or make music. And we might get lazy.
Yeah.
So we grew up riding regular bicycles. We went to medical school. We learned differential diagnosis and hands-on physical exam. But the medical students of today or tomorrow, what if they're dependent on GPT to help with a differential diagnosis or to write their medical note or to read the x-ray? What do we lose, right? So how do we keep the human skills, teach you to ride the bike, don't let you cheat. You get the e-bike later because it can help you for sure, but we still maintain our human elements. We don't want to go back to using slide rules. We still use calculators. We augment our brains. It might give us room in our medical education to speed certain things up. We're not having to memorize drug lists or drug-drug interactions. At the same time, we still want to maintain the human skills and core, and that's a huge challenge, particularly as this generative AI world accelerates. It hasn't even been here for 2 years yet.
And how universities and all the stakeholders involved in medical education can prepare themselves for this new reality where ChatGPT becomes a thing and everyone's using.
I think it means the leadership of amazing companies like Afia need to be thinking proactively, right? Not waiting and being reactive, but think, how might we improve the classroom? How do you use a AI chatbot? How do you study what works for medical education? Like now you can learn anatomy in a VR headset in 3 dimensions. And can you show that means that medical student learns anatomy twice as fast and then maintain that knowledge? Or the surgeon can practice a surgical procedure in half the time without practicing on animals or on patients. It means that the ways we learn, right? You might be more visual. I might be more auditory. Some people like pictures. Some people like diagrams. We can personalize the education. Not everyone needs to sit in the classroom with the same doctor or avatar or software. So there's lots of ways I think this can blend in. It might take some experimentation and being brave and maybe studying what really starts to work. And thinking about, for the medical students who are starting today in 2024, what knowledge and skills are they going to need for 2034. It might be quite different than the doctors who started training when we did 10, 20 years ago.
Which skills would you focus if you were about to start a medical school right now?
Well, it starts with like, who do we choose to be a medical student? You used to have to be very good at maybe at math or physics or organic chemistry. I worked very hard to get an A in organic chemistry. Have I used organic chemistry very much? Not really.
No.
So we select often folks who are very good at learning and regurgitating information, and but maybe the doctors of the future need to have not just good IQ intelligence, but good EQ emotional intelligence. Because, sorry. I can diagnose your cough with my app. So who do you choose for medical school or nursing or pharmacy might need to be melded a little bit, right? It may not just be the ones with the best grades, but better emotional intelligence. Or for those who want to be surgeons, as you trained, maybe you look at the guys who played lots of good video games, have good hand-eye coordination. I mean, it's I don't have an answer, but I think it needs to be shaped a little bit differently. And then, even how long is medical school? How do you spend your time? I know here in the US and in Brazil, the government sets the rules about what is in your curriculum. Should you be having courses on digital health and prescribing a wearable? Should you have, new modalities of how we measure a test? Maybe the test is now working with a virtual patient and seeing how you do. So lots of questions. I don't have the answers, but we need to be thinking about the art of the possible if we're going to build education for the future.
So probably as we move to personalized treatments, probably we're going to move as well to personalized education, right?
100%, not just for the medical students and doctors, but health education for every human, right? If everybody can understand their own health and physiology, you as a third grader now can download an app and play with anatomy and practice the surgery, right? It's a game, right? It can gamify learning about your lungs and what happens when you smoke. And that might make that 10-year-old who sees that video or plays with the avatar of the lungs much less likely to smoke, or be more likely to be on top of their exercise with their personalized AI avatar that helps keep them on their health journey. So lots of opportunities to not just blend the technology, but design thinking and engagement. And, whether you're in medical school or after medical school, how you interact and learn, going well beyond today's models.
Yeah. And our relationship with patients are changing as well, because this technology is not available just for us doctors. They are available for patients. So a few years ago, we saw like Dr. Google. The patient came really well prepared to the doctor appointment and with a lot of questions and a lot of presumptions. How is that going to change with Dr. GPT, which is much more powerful?
Yeah, it's coming fast and furious. I'm helping a company start in India where there's huge shortages of doctors. Like there's almost 1 billion patients there who have no access to regular primary care. We've now, built an app where you can speak in Hindi or Swahili or English, and it will help you do your triage. It can not just do the sick care; it's starting to be able to do that proactive health care. So I think the answer is, patients are going to be more engaged. They will go to Dr. GPT first, and then it can help triage and then bring them to you when they really need to be seen, maybe earlier at stage 0 of a disease, not stage 3. We know so many patients show up in the emergency room with a late stage cancer or a problem that could have been detected from their digital biomarkers or from them talking to their chatbot or helping with their mental health. The challenge is, it's putting lots of pieces together. I've been running a program called Next Med Health for 10 years. It used to be called Exponential Medicine. We've had many amazing Brazilians come there. All these solutions aren't just about learning AI or big data or wearables or 3D printing or genomics or nanotech or SynBio or VR. It's like having an appreciation of where those technologies are and how we put them together. And particularly for medical students and doctors, they're in the field. They see problems every day. You can ask, how could I address that problem in a new way? The grandma is not taking her medicines very well. She always mixes them up. Well, could we 3D print a smart AI empowered pill box that tracks them taking their meds? Not a new idea, but an example of something that can be built with medical students, teams, engineers to collaborate on the future faster.
Yeah. And for us using on a daily basis, ChatGPT, it's becoming more clear that it's more important to provide the right questions than getting the right answers. Is there any specific framework that you use when you're on daily basis using ChatGPT or something for that?
Well, there's a whole new field of prompt engineers. People
Yeah.
are best at writing the questions. That's getting easier and better. So that's a field that might get disrupted. Um, you're right. It is sort of how you ask the question, and I guess so how you build the models. The next generation of LLMs need to have the right sort of data and insights. The models and patients you see in Brazil are quite different than maybe in San Francisco. They can't be one size fits all. And also, my hope is that these sort of tools and technologies democratize care, won't again replace the doctor or the nurse, but give us new avenues for even improving the doctor patient relationship. The idea of digital empathy. When Dr. Kraft sends you a text or a WhatsApp, it doesn't need to be me typing it, but my avatar could be doing that. And you feel more connected to me, even though it's not me doing it every time. This idea of digital empathy. Many patients do things for their doctors or their medical teams. They can, and that the way those communications can be highly tuned to that individual, age, culture, language. I call it generative health, that these avatars and GPT interfaces will be much more personalized depending on who and where you are and what you're doing.
And we can use this kind of technology in our favor. For example, in a doctor consultation, we can free time from the doctor, from the keyboard and, typing things, to look at the patient, to touch the patient. So I think the future of the private clinic is going to be like keyboard free.
Keyboard till, and it's going to be a blend of physical and virtual. Phygital is the kind of combination. And when you talk to your patient on a virtual call, it won't just be on your iPad and a Skype type or Zoom type visit. We're going to see new interfaces, right? Where we might be wearing augmented reality headsets and we'll feel like we're right across the table, just like we are now. It feels just that real. Google's developed a platform that makes next generation virtual visits look amazing. So, that will be part of our future of care. So it's a really exciting time for all of us, particularly those of us in medicine, to see challenge areas, see these emerging fast-moving tools, and to solve for those problems and not wait for some technologist to drop it on us.
So if you could give one advice to all the doctors that are hearing us today, what that would be?
Well, one piece of advice is that the future is already here, just not evenly distributed. That's a famous old quote.
Yeah.
I built a platform called digital.health. If you go to the website digital.health, you can search for over 3,000 digital health companies and solutions. You might find some that might help you in your practice or a particular specialty, or to find a right diagnostic device or a mental health app for meditation. So, there are a lot of solutions that you might start to pull into your practice now. The other thing I would recommend is, if you do see a problem without a solution, keep a notebook of ideas. You see a problem? I have an idea. I see the grandma can't kick her meds, or there's the long triage line, or in the operating room, the medical student has to hold the thing in a certain way. Well, you might come up with a 3D printed version that addresses that, or help build an app with your neighbor who's an IT person. So help, find problems and solve for them. At the same time, you can already find solutions and start to plug them into your practice, or start experimenting with them. The other piece is to think a bit exponentially. We always have a failure of imagination. What's going to be here in 2 years will be pretty amazing, but wait 10 more years, right? We'll have ChatGPT 10. We'll have the $10 genome. Our mobile devices will be in our contact lenses. AI will be, almost in some ways hybridized with robotics. So as you're thinking to the future, don't have a failure of imagination. If you come to nextmed.health, we have a conference December 10th to 13th in San Diego. You're all invited to join us. There are a lot of great videos at nextmed.health, which go into deep dives of some of the things we talked about. And so we can all become futurists, right? It's all about mindset and being inspired to do things differently and take some risks. And all of us need to be healthcare innovation futurist leaders to bring better health and medicine for all of us in Brazil and around the planet.
Yeah, I love that Steve Jobs quote, stay hungry, stay foolish, and probably adding something here, stay curious.
Stay curious, because, you can't outsource your brain to GPT. You need to be trying new things, learning a new instrument, learning to code yourself, and being sort of the problem solver in collaboration with technology, because that's what will stay most useful. Staying hungry, curious, foolish, and reimagining health and medicine from where it is today: intermittent, reactive, one size fits all, sick care in the four walls of a clinic, to a future that's continuous, proactive, anytime, anywhere, truly personalized, truly health driven, that can really move the needle for everybody.
Well, it's been a real pleasure for us to receive you here, Daniel Kraft. It was amazing keynote, an amazing podcast. I bet that audience loved as well. would you like to send in a final message for the end of the show?
Well, I love to collaborate with others. I think the final message is that the future's coming faster than you think,
Yeah.
and that it's our opportunity to, especially those who are in medical school, to help shape that future in new ways. And amazing companies like Afia to catalyze that and create that infrastructure and mindset. And you can always track me down at danielcraftmd.net and at nextmed.health and digital.health. And always looking for folks to help collaborate on building a better future for all.
Okay. Thank you so much. And stay tuned for our next episodes. See you next time. Thank you
Obrigado.
again, Daniel.
Obrigado.